Are ghosts real? What if I told you that I've seen one? Stay until the end and you will hear my own personal experience with the paranormal, if that would be of interest. A literal ghost story. Greetings mortals, top of the morning to you all. I'm your host Simon. Welcome back to the library of Gnosis. Ghosts are often called tortured souls, and there is something to that. A person that has experienced a terrifying death, like being murdered, often come back as ghosts, which exist in the lower astral realm, not being able to pass on to the higher realms. Sometimes it is out of grief, sometimes the grief of their family can hold them back. Some are stuck between the veils because they are possessive. For instance, how many times have you heard a ghost say, "Leave my house," in a video online? A place where ghosts are reported is described as haunted, and often seen as being inhabited by spirits of the deceased, who may have been former residents, or were familiar with the property. Supernatural activity inside homes is said to be mainly associated with violent or tragic events in the building's past, such as murder, accidental death, or suicide. Sometimes in the recent or ancient past. However, not all hauntings are at a place of a violent death, or even on violent grounds. Some religious views argue that the spirits of those who have died have not passed over and are trapped inside the property where their memories and energy are strong. For some people that die suddenly, perhaps they don't even know that they are dead if their death is sudden and shocking. I recall hearing this story from a medium about this ghost who would frequently repeat the same action. In this case, I believe there was a traffic accident involved, so the ghost kept repeating the same action of walking across the road where the spirit had had the accident that presumably killed them. So, the medium placed a book in the middle of the road. The walking spirit eventually saw the book and probably wondered why somebody had left the book on the road. When it reached down to pick it up, it realized it was dead and was able to pass on, at least as the story goes. Some Christian denominations consider ghosts as beings who, while tied to earth, no longer live on the material plane and linger in an intermediate state before continuing their journey to heaven. On occasion, God will allow the souls in this state to return to earth to warn the living of the need for repentance. Some ghosts are actually said to be demons in disguise, who the church teaches, in accordance with Timothy 4:1, that they come to deceive people and draw them away from God and into bondage. As a result, attempts to contact the dead may lead to unwanted contact with the demon or an unclean spirit. Whatever the reason, in some instances the soul seems to linger earthbound. For that is what all ghosts are, souls without body, incorporeal spirits. There are other types of spirits, as mentioned of course, but I won't cover them in this specific broadcast. A ghost is the soul or spirit of a dead person, or animal, that can appear to the living. In ghost lore, descriptions of ghosts vary widely, from an invisible presence to a translucent or barely visible wispy shape, to realistic, lifelike forms. Another widespread belief concerning ghosts is that they are composed of a misty, airy or subtle material. Anthropologists link this idea to the early belief that ghosts were the person with the person's spirit, most noticeably in ancient culture as a person's breath, which upon exhaling in colder climates appear visibly as a white mist. This belief may also have fostered the metaphorical meaning of breath in certain languages, such as the Latin spiritus and the Greek pneuma, which by analogy became extended to mean the soul. In the Bible, God is depicted as synthesizing Adam as a living soul from the dust of the earth and the breath of God. Ghosts are generally described as solitary, human-like essences, though stories of ghostly armies and the ghosts of animals rather than humans have also been recounted. They are believed to haunt particular locations, objects, or people they were associated with in life. Although the human soul was sometimes symbolically or literally depicted in ancient cultures as a bird or other animal, it appears to have been widely held that the soul was the exact reproduction of the body in every feature, even down to the clothing the person wore. This is depicted in artwork from various ancient cultures, including such works as the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which shows the deceased people in the afterlife appearing much as they did before death, including the style of dress. There are many references to ghosts in Mesopotamian religions. Traces of these beliefs survive in later Abrahamic religions that came to dominate the region. Ghosts were thought to be created at the time of death, taking on the memory and personality of the dead person. They traveled to the netherworld, where they were assigned a position and led an existence similar to some ways to that of the living. Relatives of the dead were expected to make offerings of food and drinks to the dead to ease their conditions. If they did not, the ghosts could inflict misfortune and illness on the living. Traditional healing practices ascribed a variety of illnesses to the action of ghosts, while others were caused by gods or demons. Medieval European ghosts were more substantial than ghosts described in the Victorian Age, and there are accounts of ghosts being wrestled with and physically restrained until a priest could arrive to hear its confession. Now, this I'm calling bullshit on. The origins of Halloween customs are typically linked to the Gaelic festival Samhain. Samhain was one of the quarter's days in the medieval Gaelic calendar and was celebrated on the 31st of October to the 1st of November. I have also heard that the reason we celebrate All Hallows during these dates is to commemorate those that died during the fall of Atlantis during the same dates. For Celts, the day ended and began at sunset. Thus, the festival began the evening before November 1st by modern reckoning. Samhain is mentioned in some of the earliest Irish literature. The names have been used by historians to refer to Celtic Halloween customs up until the 19th century, and are still the Gaelic and Welsh names for Halloween. Samhain marked the end of the harvest season and beginning of winter, or the darker half of the year. It was seen as liminal time, where the boundary between this world and the other world thinned. This meant the Odyssey, the spirits or fairies, could more easily come into this world, and were particularly active. They were both respected and feared, with individuals often invoking the protection of God when approaching their dwellings. At Samhain, the Odyssey were appeased to ensure the people and livestock survived the winter. Offerings of food and drink, or portions of the crops were left outside for them. The souls of the dead were also said to revisit their homes seeking hospitality. Places were set at the dinner table and by the fire to welcome them. The belief that the souls of the dead return home on one night of the year and must be appeased seems to have ancient origins and is found in many cultures. In 19th century Ireland, quote, candles would be lit and prayers formally offered for the souls of the dead. After this, the eating and drinking and games would begin. There were widespread belief in ghosts in ancient Egyptian culture. The soul and spirits were believed to exist after death, with the ability to assist or harm the living, and the possibility of a second death. Over a period of more than 2,500 years, Egyptian beliefs about the nature of afterlife evolved constantly. The Hebrew Bible contains a few references to ghosts. The most notable reference is in the first book of Samuel, in which a disguised King Saul has the witch of Endor summon the spirit or ghost of Samuel. Ghosts appear in Homer's Odyssey and Iliad, in which they were described as vanishing, quote, as a vapor, gibbering and whining into the earth. End quote. Homer's ghosts had little interaction with the world of the living. Periodically, they would be called upon to provide advice or prophecy, but they do not appear to be particularly feared. Ghosts in the classical world will often appear in the form of vapor or smoke, but at other times they were described as being substantial, appearing as they had at the time of death, complete with the wounds that killed them. Another common name for them were shades. In the New Testament, according to Luke 24:37, following his resurrection, Jesus was forced to persuade the disciples that he was not a ghost. Similarly, Jesus' followers at the first believed he was a spirit when they saw him walking on water. According to a 2009 study by Pew Research Center, 18% of Americans say they have seen a ghost. So, I guess I'm not the only one. Let me tell you my story. So, you want to hear a ghost story, eh? Well, I'll give you one. This was back in 2010. I have a cabin out in a rural kind of farmstead. And I was up late watching some movies. I think it was around the witching hour actually, 4 a.m. I went out to the kitchen to get some water, and above the kitchen sink there's a window. And well, I started pouring up my glass. Then I looked in the window, and I got the shock of my life. Behind me, a couple of meters behind me in the kitchen, I could see this image, or this person standing there. He looked like a maid, you know, with the apron and the thing they have on the cowl they have on their head. Anyways, I was staring at this thing, this being in my kitchen for 5 minutes. That's how long I was staring at it. You know, it didn't go away like you think, like ghosts that are like you just catch a glimpse of them and they're gone. No, this was a full body apparition in my kitchen staring at me, and well, scared the shit out of me. But it was a cool experience. So 5 minutes I was staring at it. Then I finally got enough courage to turn around. Nothing there. Anyways, I do like being on video sometimes. Maybe I'll make a habit out of it. Put a face to the voice, you know? Anyways, this was just my ghost story. It's the only one I've had. I mean, I've had experiences with synchronicities and paranormal kind of, you know, magic and stuff like that. But this is the only time I've seen a ghost or a cryptid or anything like it. So I felt like sharing. Please, if you have your own ghost story, then leave it down in the comment section below. I'm sure people will love to hear it. Anyways, I'll catch you next one, mortals.